we're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Friday, July 24th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Higher. Great to have you. Also fabulous with us.
Happy end of the week.
Happy Friday. Yay. So both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're finally at the end of the work week, and if you're looking for the perfect excuse to get out and explore, we've got just the thing. From centuries-old traditions to timeless craftsmanship, Korea's cultural heritage continues to bring history to life through festivals and hands-on experiences. So to start us off, Haya, what are some famous examples of Korea's cultural heritage? Like, what comes to mind?
So Korea is home to so many beautiful and amazing cultural heritage sites.
Right.
Right. So the first places that come to my mind are absolutely Gyeongbokgung Palace and Changgyeokgung Palace. Yes. So they are popular spots for tourists from all over the world, and many visitors put on a hanbok, which is Korea's traditional clothing, take photos and walk around the palaces. Actually, I haven't tried that yet, but it's definitely on my bucket list. And I think it would make me feel like I'm the main character in a historical K-drama, right?
Completely.
Right? And it's not just about palaces. Korea is also famous for intangible culture heritage, like Pansori and Gangangsule, which combine music, singing, and dance together.
I strongly recommend you having that experience because I've done it before.
Oh, you did? Okay.
They also do your hair, and they really give you the whole look. So it really does make you feel like you are a character in a historical drama. So I do recommend this.
That's cool.
So do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, Hire, it's time to put on that 외국인 mask, put on that foreigner mask,
that
and really go for it.
Yeah.
It's a lovely experience. And I think Hire also mentioned some of the best examples. We have tangible things such as specific places like Gyeongbokgung Palace, but also intangible things such as music or daily activities. And when we talk about heritage, it's all about transmission. So making sure that specific traditions are able to survive across generations. And it does make sense that in this very fast-paced lifestyle that we have in the world right now, there is often a greater interest in discovering new methodologies or creating new trends rather than preserving older ones. However, because cultural heritage really represents the soul of a culture, I do think that it's very important to make sure that it remains alive in one way or another.
I fully agree. So heritage really isn't about keeping traditions frozen in time. It's about ensuring they're passed on and continue to have meaning for future generations. So we're going to talk more about this, but first, let's take a look at the screen. South Korea is home to a rich cultural heritage, from majestic royal palaces to traditions passed down through generations. Beyond its historical landmarks, Korea's intangible cultural heritage, including music, dance, craftsmanship, and performing arts, is taking center stage this week at the Intangible Cultural Heritage Festival in Busan. Held to mark the 48th UNESCO World Heritage Committee session, the festival celebrates the artistry and enduring value of Korea's living traditions through performances and interactive experiences. Today on News Generation, we explore some of Korea's most treasured intangible cultural heritage, how younger generations are helping preserve these traditions, and what it takes to keep this living heritage alive for the future. Just as we saw in a video, Korea's cultural heritage isn't only found in museums or historic sites, it's also kept alive through people and traditions. And many of these living traditions continue to shape Korean identity today. So Fabio also kind of mentioned this, but what are some of Korea's best-known examples of intangible cultural heritage?
So intangible cultural heritage actually covers a wide range of traditions. It includes not only traditional performances and arts, but also craftsmanship, medical knowledge, traditional customs, social practices, and even traditional games as well. So let me give you a few examples. One of the best-known ones is Pansori, which is recognized by UNESCO. It's often described as Korea's version of opera. A single singer tells a dramatic story while a drummer keeps the rhythm. And another great example is Arirang, Korea's most famous folk song. It actually shares the same name as our network. And of course, Arirang is also on UNESCO's list. There's also 줄타기, or traditional tightrope walking. What makes it unique is that it's not just about performing tricks. The performer tells stories and jokes with the audience and even acts while walking on the rock. So if you ever get the chance, I highly recommend watching the 2005 film The King and the Clown, 왕의 남자. It's a classic, but you will get a great look at this unique Korean tradition, 줄타기.
Right, so it's fascinating how these traditions span everything from performing arts to everyday customs, showing that heritage is as much about people as it is about history. And some of these traditions can be especially surprising to first-time visitors. So Fabio, as a foreigner who's lived in Korea for a bit, so which Korean intangible heritage impressed you the most?
So for me, beyond music and performances, one of the entries that really caught my attention is actually kimjang, which is the art of making traditional kimchi. And it usually takes place in late autumn, and I think it's a wonderful example of how something like this can really bring people and communities together. A similar example is how in 2024, jang was also listed by UNESCO as intangible cultural heritage. For those who might not know, jang gives us Korea's traditional fermented sauces. I've actually had the chance to visit a Korean farm and see part of the process myself, and it was a really unique experience. Interesting, but most of all, I think it was essential because after all, soy sauce, doenjang, and gochujang are all essential ingredients in Korean cuisine. So preserving the knowledge behind them, I think it's just as meaningful as preserving the food itself. And another tradition that was listed that really fascinates me is the culture of Jeju Island's haenyeo. These are the female freedivers that sometimes are referred to as the Korean mermaids, and I would absolutely love to see them in person one day. And I even heard they have some tours in the island, so I would love to try them in the future. So for me, this type of ancestral practices really reflect a deeper body of knowledge that remains relevant even today.
And I love how you mentioned like making kimchi, like kimjang or like the haenyeo. Like these are all experiences that tourists can experience themselves, which I think is really special.
Exactly, completely.
So it's also so basically, fortunately, many young people are making sure that these traditions don't just fade away. So then, how are younger Koreans helping preserve intangible cultural heritages?
So I think these days younger generations are changing the way people look at the traditional culture. So instead of seeing it as something old-fashioned, now many Gen Zers are discovering its value and finding new ways to share it. In fact, many young practitioners of Korea's intangible cultural heritage are learning traditional skills and introducing them on YouTube and social media. One recent example is a YouTube short video about 장도, a traditional Korean knife. It went viral, reaching more than 10 million views and attracting over 10,000 subscribers. It proves that traditional culture doesn't have to stay in the past. With a little creativity, it can still inspire and connect with younger generations today.
So it's encouraging to see traditions being reinterpreted rather than simply preserved, making them more accessible for younger generations. And that growing interest isn't limited to heritage practitioners alone. So also, how are K-pop stars helping promote Korea's intangible heritage?
Well, it is happening. You see, as more people become more interested in these modern aspects of Korean culture, such as trendy K-pop songs or K-dramas such as Squid Game, it is also natural that they also become interested in the original background behind it. So it makes sense that an intersection between K-pop and cultural heritage was meant to happen. For example, we have seen high-profile celebrities such as Super Junior's Yesung or solo artist Dawn taking part in different types of content that promote this Korea's national heritage system. So for example, Super Junior's Yesung has actually collaborated with the National Heritage Culture channel on a series of videos that actually show us a lot of insights into the lives of this craftsman and these traditions that are very hard to carry on. And for example, I also mentioned the singer Dawn, and he also created content, but in this case, I think he really highlighted very well the problem and the challenges that are caused by the declining number of people who are really carrying on these traditions. And I think this one of the reasons why this problem is really important is because according to 한국일보, when it comes to Korea's national intangible cultural heritage, the highest level inheritors are sometimes called, by the way, holders, or I think we should call them living national treasures. They are numbered only 174 people as of last January. And the average age of these people are around 74.5 years, which means that 60 or even older actually account for 94.8% of the total. So overall, this is a very old generation that they're having a pretty hard time keeping up with, keeping up the tradition. So it is true that younger generations are becoming more interested in the topic, but now the challenge is to, really sparking up that interest so that they actually get hands-on and maybe make that part of their own lifestyle so that the culture doesn't die.
And I think making them more accessible and raising awareness is going to be really big. And you mentioned how Super Junior's Yesong and obviously Ton are also taking part in doing their part in raising awareness, which I think is really important because I feel a lot younger people might not even know that this kind of stuff exists as well. And them having a dedicated fan base probably helps with that as well.
It's very good that the exposure is there. Now we have to take it to the next level.
Right, exactly. So it's remarkable how influential public figures are using their platforms to bring centuries-old traditions to new audiences around the world. And as awareness grows, the challenge is to ensure these traditions continue to thrive for generations to come. So to get a broader perspective on this, we're going to be joined by someone carrying on the legacy of one of Korea's intangible cultural heritage that we just mentioned. And that conversation will take place right after break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
We're joined now by Bang Nam-jung, a third-generation Changdo craftsman who's officially recognized under Korea's National Intangible Cultural Heritage Program. So hello, thank you so much for connecting with us today. All right, so what is Changdo craftsmanship and what makes it so unique?
Jangdojang is a national intangible cultural heritage of Korea that preserves the traditional craft of making jangdo. Korea's traditional ornamental knives, along with the knowledge and the techniques passed down through generations. For centuries, jangdo served not only as a practical everyday tools, but also as a personal ornaments that reflect their honor status, dignity, and refinement. Jangdojang is much more than simply making a knife. It encompasses the entire process from forging the blade and crafting the sits and the handle to metal decoration and the final assembly using traditional methods. What makes it unique is that a single piece brings together skills from a range of fields, including blacksmithing, woodworking, metalworking, and engraving. Beyond preserving traditional techniques, Jangdojang also carries forward the artisan sense of proportion, beauty, and craftsmanship that has been passed down through generations.
All right, thank you. Actually, I saw the video that you uploaded on your YouTube channel and really wanted to tell you that it was really, really interesting. So my next question is, as a third-generation craftsman, what inspired you to continue your family's tradition and why do you think it is important to pass it down through the generations?
I grew up surrounded by jangdo, so continuing this tradition naturally became a part of my life. At first, I saw it simply as my family's craft, but as I learned the work, I realized that Jangdojang is not just about making knives. It is about preserving craftsmanship, knowledge, and a sense of beauty that has been passed down for centuries. To me, the greatest value of Jangdojang is not finished object itself, but the artisan's eye and the skill behind it. The ability to judge form and proportion, the sensitivity developed through hands-on experience, and the techniques refined over many years cannot be learned from books alone. These values can only be passed down from one person to another, and that is why I believe this tradition should continue.
I think this really highlights how important exposure is when choosing this path. So what would you say, I think, my question would be, why does intangible heritage still matter today? And what can we do to better preserve it?
I believe intangible heritage is not simply an expertise, but a process which the experience and the sensibility of one generation are passed on to the next. The finished work may remain, but the knowledge, judgment, and skill required to make it could disappear unless people continue to carry them forward. One of the greatest challenges is that there is less and less time and opportunity available to pass these skills on. Traditional craftsmanship cannot be learned from books alone. They require years of watching, making, and gaining experience by hand before being able to truly master. To preserve intangible heritage, we need more than simply protecting the tradition. We need to create an environment where people can continue to learn, make, and develop these traditions today. That tradition survives longest not in museums, but in people's lives.
I really like what you said, the last thing you said about how it's not just in museums, it needs to be preserved through people. And I think you're a great example of what the future of intangible heritage should look like. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your insights with us today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
We just heard how intangible heritage can be passed from generation to generation, but it's also something the public can experience and appreciate firsthand. And this week, one of Korea's biggest cultural events is bringing many of these traditions together in one place. So what's happening at the UNESCO World Heritage event that's taking place in Busan, Hayoon?
So since July 19th, Spexco in Busan has been hosting a large festival, cultural festivals, alongside the UNESCO World Heritage Committee meeting. The committee is UNESCO's top decision-making body responsible for adding new World Heritage sites and discussing how to protect them. More than 3,000 participants are expected to attend this year's meeting. Since it's the first time Korea has ever hosted the event, there's a lot for visitors to enjoy. They'll get to experience performances like 종묘 제대악, Pansori, 줄타기, and other forms of traditional Korean music. One performance I'm especially excited about is 대치타. It was traditionally played during royal processions and military marches in the Joseon dynasty. And BTS member Suga even took inspiration from it for his solo song 대치타. So if you're a BTS fan, this could be a fun chance to see where that inspiration came from.
And I think it's another great example of how raising awareness is so important, because I think a lot of BTS fans probably learned about Daechita through that song.
Yes,
right.
And also it happens in Busan, right?
Right, so that's exciting. So it sounds like a rare opportunity to experience so many of Korea's living traditions all at one festival. It's not just about watching the performances from the audience. So what hands-on activities can visitors enjoy at this festival?
Right, as we mentioned, the performances are definitely exciting, but one of the best things is that, going back to what we said in the interview, it's all about exposure. We need to really get hands-on to actually learn about those traditional skills. So people who are able to attend the festival can not only watch demonstrations on traditional tangible heritage skills or intangible heritage skills, but also try them for themselves. Some examples are, for example, making traditional masks, trying on traditional clothing such as hanbok, and even playing traditional Korean instruments. And for anyone watching, the festival runs until the 29th. So if you're interested, I think it's definitely worth checking out.
Those interactive experiences are a great way to connect with these traditions beyond simply just learning about them. But of course, festivals are just one piece of the puzzle. So to close off today's discussion, and our Zoom guest mentioned this numerous times during the interview, that's so important to preserve and carry on the legacy of Korean's intangible culture. What are your ideas on how this can be done?
Well, I think the first step is supporting the people who dedicate their lives to preserving these traditions.
Right.
If we want our cultural heritage to continue, then they need the right support, right? Including the government, from the government. But I think there's something that all of us can do as well. We can just watch traditional performances and visit cultural festivals or take part in hands-on activities whenever we have the chance. So keeping intangible heritage alive isn't just the responsibility of a few people. It's something we all have passed on to future generations.
Right, I mean, it looks like these festivals are a lot of fun, so this is something that I think a lot of people would be and should be interested in as well. So what are your ideas on this?
It's actually not a simple topic.
It
I think a lot of people are influenced through what happens throughout their lives. So nowadays, younger generations are very influenced through technology and social media and different types of content. So obviously, we can promote this type of cultural heritage through content, and that exposure is going to give them a gateway to really discover this traditional culture and maybe even find a passion from within. But as we have seen from the interview and from many other examples that I have seen in my own personal experience, many of the artisans that are alive today and carrying on these traditions have actually had that in their own household. So by learning from their parents or from having that type of tradition very accessible, they are able to, experience it hands-on and really get the gist of how it works. Not only that, but also being able to maintain 30 years of experience, for example. That is not easy to do if you just found that that passion of yours, if it comes up during your 20s, you're not going to be able to keep up to the same level of the artisans that are alive right now.
So it's not as accessible either.
Exactly. So I think that is one of the biggest problems with our younger generation. I think younger generations need to be pretty well versed in a lot of different areas, and they have to excel at a lot of them in order to find their own passion. But so far up to till today, I think most of the very traditional artisans have been able to maintain this through practicing since they were like, let's say, 5 years old. So I think that is one of the problems, but definitely by showing that exposure, we are maybe making the problem a little bit less intense.
Right, and I seeing the footage of Changdo, for example, I was like, I would want to get to know, try and have experience with that, but
Completely.
also I don't know where to start. And I think that's why these festivals are so important to, give the chance for the public to experience it themselves as well.
And I got the pleasure of interviewing some artisans, for example, in traditional crafts like 나전칠기, which is mother of pearl, or 금속공예, which is metal work. And what they always said is that a lot of people are interested in learning about the technique itself. The problem is that in order to become good at it, you need to invest a lot of time. And investing that much time is sometimes not as realistic as we might think.
So what was her advice then?
Her advice would be to have parents who are actually artisans.
I see, or like attend these festivals could be.
So I think maybe what we should do as a whole, as a community, is just change our perception about the crafts themselves and maybe be a little less or more supportive about different ways of expression.
Right, it's a good way to put it. So some things never go out of style, and Korea's intangible heritage may be one of them. And as more young people embrace these customs in new and creative ways, they're proving that heritage can continue to evolve. And perhaps that's the best way to ensure these traditions are passed on for generations to come. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back on Monday at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Hire.
Thank you for having me today.
And also Fabio.
Thank you very much.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. And I hope you get to experience your intangible Korean heritage soon. We are
News Generation.